Hey dorks. Over the years, Apple's made computers of all sizes. The original Macintosh kicked off the era of what would be known as the compact Mac, followed up by various desktops, laptops, pizza boxes, mini towers, full towers, giant servers, this weird flat thing, all-in-ones, trash cans that reheat White Castle sliders, and right up to today on my desk, marvels of miniaturization. Most of the time, the cases for these big machines were appropriately sized for the components held within. A big board needs a big case, but once in a while you get an oddity like today's specimen where the outward appearance is a big fat liar. 1996 was the year of the clones, and a huge portion of those were towers. Apple had occasional tower models of their own, but their bread and butter were desktops and all-in-ones. This is purely speculation on my part, but after the success of all the clone towers, it felt like Apple wanted to get in on the act, but they didn't really have a low to mid-range option that needed a tower. So they built a big marshmallowy tower around a small 5400 board and called it a day. Mac User magazine likened the case's appearance to a clothes hamper or a bread machine. I always thought it just looked like a Mac that got stung by a bee. The 6400 was the first Performa to ship with a 200 MHz CPU, so it's definitely decent for performance, getting fairly close to the professional models like the 9500. It also had a price tag to match. The lowest end model with a 180 MHz PowerPC 603E was $2,400. It did come with a bundle of software, a keyboard, and a mouse, but unlike earlier Performas, no monitor was included. The highest end version with a 200 MHz CPU and video capture equipment was $2,800. If you like this kind of tomfoolery, maybe like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want behind the scenes and ad-free early access to my videos and projects and stuff, I've set up a Patreon. It's only $3 and there's some neat stuff up there, including all the music I use on the channel without all the yapping I do over it. The link is in the description. The one I've got here is in okay condition. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's kind of yellow and the plastic is broken in a bunch of places. When you look at it from the right angles, it doesn't actually look that ugly. First thing to pull out is the logic board. It slides out the back. You just have to pull these little plastic tabs on the back. Oh, looks like I'll have to improvise. Right inside the PCI slot covers, there's this little hole. I can stick a long screwdriver in here and then use it as a lever against this back vent to pop out the board. Next, I have to take off the front. Normally here at the bottom of the front panel, there are two buttons you press to release the clips, but they broke on mine way before I took possession of it. Looking at these claw marks along the seam, it looks like someone else used a metal tool to pry into this thing before. I'll use a softer plastic prying tool to get the front off. Well, that worked. Now to get this swollen forehead off. The official Apple service manual says to do it with a long screwdriver and pry. It warns you'll hear a loud cracking sound. Now the top just slides off. This top compartment is for adding things like a second CD-ROM or a zip drive. I'm going to add a blue SCSI in here. The CD-ROM drive uses SCSI, and this top section has a SCSI daisy chain cable coming off of it. It's nice that they included an empty drive sled just for this. Finally, I'll go ahead and remove the IDE hard drive, since I'm not going to use it. Well, that was to be expected. I'm going to reuse a bracket I made for the Performa 630 to attach this blue SCSI to the drive sled. Then I made a rough draft of a new forehead bezel thing so I can access the SD card for the blue SCSI using an SD card extension dealie. It doesn't quite have the right curves of the case, so I'm going to have to go back and fix that eventually, but for now it'll do. You have access to the SCSI and power cables through this hole on the top. battery hasn't leaked yet. The caps don't look like they've leaked either, but it's just a matter of time. I'm going to remove them and replace them with polymer caps that won't leak to try to give this machine many more years of reliable service. Get ready for some hot cap twisting action. Like I've mentioned before, I'm not actually twisting the caps off the board. I push down while I twist and it pulls the can of the cap off the legs. The legs stay attached to the board the whole time and get removed with an iron later when I go clean up the pads. Some of these caps are under the heatsink overhang. I'll have to remove it and repaste the CPU. I'll use the microscope for cleanup and putting new caps on. Whoops, I ended up pulling this resistor off soldering this cap down. Luckily, after checking with a friend, I found out that it was just a 0 ohm resistor, so I replaced it with a little scrap wire. Other than that, the recap was uneventful. Reapplying some thermal paste and attaching the heatsink. Now the battery. I'm reusing the cable from the original battery. Nice. Okay. Let's test. Looks like it's working. I'm going to use the official restore disc that came with the machine so we can get a true out-of-the-box experience. There is a ton of bundled software here. Wow, there's a lot of real games here. Full version of Glider Pro. And here's Lemmings. Full version of SimCity 2000. This is a dream bundle. Never heard of this one before. It's pretty cool. Spaceway 2000.
Cock.
Well then. Who needs ChatGPT? We had the amazing writing machine since 1996 to take over for our brains and write our correspondence. Nice, a full version of Descent. Here's Blockbuster Video's Guide to Movies and Video. The Mayo Clinic Family Health Disc promised to be your doctor at home.
Welcome to the Mayo Clinic Family Health Disc.
This section helps you explore information about medical conditions that may cause particular symptoms.
You've got leprosy. Goodbye.
Maybe I should go get that checked out. Alright, I installed Quake. Let's check it out. It's not great. 17 frames per second, and there's no sound. Time to test some serious performance. Here's speedometer. Not bad. And the famous Photoshop blur test. "27 seconds. Feels kind of slow to me. Well, this 180 MHz model didn't come with a cache module. The 200 MHz one did, and the modules are interchangeable, and I just so happen to have one I can chuck in here to see how much better it performs. Looks like the cache got us about 2% CPU performance and 13% graphics performance. Not bad. How's Photoshop look? That only came out to 1 second faster. Not that impressive. But this cache module isn't the only thing that can go in the cache slot. I've also got this Sonic Crescendo G3 accelerator that upgrades the machine from a 180 MHz 603E to a 300 MHz G3 with 1 mega cache. Now we're talking. That's a 153% jump in CPU performance and 150% in graphics. 14 seconds. That's twice as fast. This accelerator is pretty cool. Kinda want to put it in my 4400 along with a 3DFX card and a USB card to make the dumbest G3 Mac ever. One thing these early PCI Power Macs can do that no other Macs can is run BeOS. I'd like to see how that runs on here, especially since I just got this nice boxed copy of BeOS 3 from my friend Ron at Ron's Computer Videos. Oh, it doesn't want to install with the G3 card active. I did read somewhere that once it's installed you can get it to boot up with the G3. It's just the installer that complains. So this Mac can't boot directly into any operating system other than macOS. It needs to load a little bit of the macOS system first, before it can then go into BeOS. So we have to install this OS Chooser extension. Since I have the BeOS CD in the drive, the OS Chooser finds it and boots straight to the installer. And what a simple installer it is. Already booted up into a BeOS desktop. The Teapot demo, about 4 or 5 frames per second here running off the 603E. This flight simulator demo feels real smooth. Alright, let's try to get the G3 card working in BeOS. The key is the order in which the extensions load on boot. I have to load the G3 card extension before the OS Chooser. The way you usually do that is by going to the extensions folder and changing the number of spaces at the front of the file name. The more spaces it has, the earlier it'll run. So we'll do the Sonnet extension first, and then the OS Chooser second. No dice. It just gets stuck at this B logo screen. I don't know enough about this stuff to try to get a verbose mode to see where it's dying. Oh well. Let's check out some more games in macOS. I want to see how much better Descent runs on the G3. Weird. The mouse doesn't work in-game, but it does work in the menus. I tried in 603E mode, and it definitely still works there. Wonder what could be causing that weird problem when the G3 is the active CPU. How about Quake? "34 frames per second, that's twice as fast. Now that's worth playing on here. Unfortunately, there's still no sound. As for my opinion on the machine, well, it's a mixed bag. It was pretty powerful for its time, but as soon as I ventured outside of its bundled software, I started having trouble. As a machine to collect and play with now 30 years later, well, it's interesting looking, and that's being kind. The plastic, at least on mine, is disintegrating and it's just too big. You can get the same exact machine in a 630-like form factor if you get the 6360. Ultimately though, there are way better PowerPC machines to play with, so I'd rather go with a beige G3 desktop. I'm settling on it being pretty crummy. The G3 card was a cool curiosity, but they're hard to come by, and I got mine by complete chance. There are way more interesting machines to put that in than this one, and hopefully I can have better luck making things work like BeOS and mouse control in Descent. I'll probably be giving the stock 6400 away at the next meetup I go to. Look for it on a free pile in the New England region. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see me do more stupid stuff with computers, stay tuned.